Thoughts on recruitment marketing, next on the RecTech podcast.
Welcome to RecTech, the podcast where recruiting and technology intersect. Each month, you'll hear from vendors shaping the recruiting world, along with recruiters who'll tell you how they use technology to hire talent. Now, here's your host, the mad scientist of online recruiting, Chris Russell.
All right, it's time for another edition of RecTech, the only podcast that helps employers and recruiters connect with more candidates through technology-inspired conversations. Today's show is a recruiter edition. This episode of RecTech is sponsored by our friends at HireTool, the recruiter's best friend. Here's what recruiter Michael Kraus says about them. The HireTool AI tool is awesome. It saves me hours per day sourcing by delivering me the closest match from multiple sources, and it's paid for itself within the first 30 days. HireTool's AI engine is a personal sourcing assistant that works for you 24/7. You can find anyone's contacts and analytics. You can get access to undiscovered profiles from the open web. They've got a Boolean builder assistant, great Chrome extension, great customer support. Check them out at hiretool.com. That's HireTual.com. And as a reminder, the show is syndicated on hrpodcasters.com. Head over there. You can find this and other shows in the HR industry and check that out. Don't forget to check out my RecTech Live video training shows where I teach recruiters about everything from social recruiting to new technology in the recruiting marketing space. You can find all the shows at rectechlive.com. Typically happen on most Thursdays, sometimes Fridays, but rectechlive.com is where you can find those shows as well. All right, so in a few moments you're going to hear some audio from a recent panel at TA Tech Europe that I attended, but I want to chat first briefly about recruitment marketing for a moment. At RecTech Media, we enable companies to outsource much of these efforts, from managing your job advertising to creating content for your career site, managing your social recruiting channels, all so you can get back to the business of recruiting itself. You know, right now I see too many employers trying to meld these responsibilities onto someone in recruiting or TA who are still expected to source and recruit. But to me, that's kind of that the recruiting marketing function is better suited to more of a dedicated role, dedicated marketer who has understanding for how to convert online clicks into applicants. I saw a recruiting manager ad the other day. I was reading it where the person was supposed to do full cycle recruiting and run the recruiting marketing function, such as managing the vendors, managing the social media channels. And to me, that really mutes the aspect of that job, because I think it really cries out for a dedicated person to do that. There's no ways you can dedicate enough time to both the recruiting function and the recruiting marketing function to really, I think, properly market your jobs overall. So that's kind of why we started the outsourcing function of that here at RecTech Media. So if a company needs help with that, consider giving us a call at 203-572-2053, or just email me, chris@rectechmedia.com. So enjoy the audio where you're going to hear Chad Sowas, Shane Gray from Clinch, Tycho Van Passen from Vonk, and Jane Ronayne from Connect Again bounce around some ideas in recruitment marketing. Enjoy the audio.
So, message is an issue, right? Because, again, recruiters are recruiters. They're not marketers. They're not messaging specialists, per se. But also, where do you put that message, right?
Exactly.
So, okay, yeah, we'll get a little bit deeper into that, I think. Shane, what about you? What are you guys trying to solve for? Big one.
The big one we saw about 4 years ago was most companies had vast quantities of candidates who were coming, looking and engaging with them as a potential employer, but they knew nothing about them. So they paid for the clicks, they bought the traffic, and they usually threw them in front of an ATS and hoped that everybody would make an application. And as we all know, it doesn't pan out that way.
Right.
In fact, it doesn't pan out for 90% of people. And that's for a very simple reason. It's because most people, as they move through that candidate decision journey, are really there to find out more about the company in the initial phase. Of course, that's excluding the people who are going to make applications day in and day out and end up in the ATS to be disposed of no matter what. But most people are there to make sure the company passes a health check. And once those gaps in their knowledge are filled in, then they will start to consider the actual roles on offer. So Clinch set out to solve that problem by capturing more of those candidates, tracking the ones that may not have been known, and really trying to help organizations get to know more of that pool of anonymous talent in some cases that was visiting their site, was engaging with their jobs, but was not ending up in the ATS. And we felt that the big opportunity was typically the workflow in recruiting looked like, oh, I have all these applicants in my ATS, but I don't have the ones I want, and then bang, I need to go to LinkedIn and hunt down people and cold call people. And as anybody who's involved in sales knows, that's the hardest part of sales.
Are you really finding that they're going into their applicant tracking system and looking for talent? Because I mean, just from my standpoint, they're not even taking that. They're not even taking that time. They're going out. They're going straight to the top of the funnel, and they're going straight to posting.
You're right, and I think that's been driven by a number of factors. So applicant tracking systems are very good at doing exactly that, tracking applications and delivering a compliance function, but they're not so good as a searchable database in many cases, and that's why CRM type solutions like Clinch or Smashfly or Beamery or Avature have evolved to fill in that gap, to try and help aggregate more of those people, be it non-applicants who haven't made it the whole way, or the ones who have made it the whole way but just haven't been successful for that particular job. So for sure, that is a factor that they don't get looked at.
So they're not getting looked at, and obviously, so we're paying over and over and over for the same people who are jumping into our applicant tracking system.
Exactly.
That being said, from a marketing standpoint, being able to go back into that database, going back into our current employees, what are we doing? What are we doing to re-engage them? Because we know obviously referrals are so huge, or at least that's what we've heard over the years, right? Number one, number two in hiring. How do we re-engage through marketing internally to be able to make that more relevant for us, to be able to build more talent pipelines, to engage?
I think one massive talent pipeline that a lot of organizations don't utilize is their alumni community. And what's pretty interesting, what we do at Talimas is that when we conduct exit interviews, we're finding that on average 60% of people that are walking in the door are actually willing to come back if they're engaged at the right moment. And I think actually having a structure and making it easy for somebody
What
to...
do you mean by engaged? What do you mean by engaged at the right point?
So on average it's 18 months is the usual time where somebody decides if they're going to leave a job.
Yeah.
So actually sending a notification to say, hey Neil, you left us 18 months ago, how are you getting on? We have a job opportunity, would you like to come back?
So do you engage them while they're still employed? Obviously to try to keep them up to date, to keep them engaged, to keep them informed. I mean, because research actually shows there's like over 70% of employees who are engaged and more informed about what's going on in the organization, they're retained, right?
I think the communication is absolutely key. And what we do on our platform is that we actually have a job board built in. So if you want to refer a friend, you can now do that. And even though you're an ex-employee, you can still get some bit of, an opportunity in terms of maybe cash or, I don't know, some bit of incentive for you to refer a friend, or else you have the option, another call to action to apply for that job yourself. And everything that we do is personalized to each user. So I could say, I'm leaving today, but I'm still interested in these type of key areas. And then if a job opportunity comes up that actually goes under those different tags, I get another. So it's very much putting the action back on the user. So the HR department actually are able to keep getting candidates, but it's up to them too at the same time.
Gotcha. Well, and that also leads into predictive analysis, right? So you take a look at churn, which is what you're trying not to have. So you want that engagement, but churn's going to happen, right? Churn's going to happen. So how do we predict what's going on, not just on our outreach, but also churn and just messaging overall?
If you look at from a marketing perspective, what you see more and more is everything gets integrated with each other. So currently you have your ATS, your talent management system, and by also integrating your marketing analytics with that, you're able to track back which candidate was hired, and what was the source of this candidate, and how successful is this person within the company. And if you have that full measurement, you can also see, you can even lower your churn, because if you can look back, what are my best performers, and what were the sources of these candidates. You're able to actually see, okay, what kind of sources or what kind of advertisement should I use in the future to be more successful. I have an example of this. There's a kitchen manufacturer, a kitchen seller in the Netherlands, and it turned out, so after a couple of years, they found out that the people who were most successful within that company, they sold cars in the past. So this, they could see this because of these analytics within the company.
Okay, so you can see some of your best potential for X job could come from a specific industry, and then you could start targeting them. That would reduce churn, probably have better performers. Exactly. And then if you go ahead and pull the employee, I guess, marketing, that also helps reduce churn. So I mean, it's like a total overall system, right? What about AI, Shane? How is AI going to affect, or how is it currently impacting marketing today? Messaging, outreach, targeting, those types of things.
I think at the moment, and I think we're always cautious in our own language around AI because we feel that there's a lot of machine learning out there. A lot of it's not very intelligent yet, and most AI takes hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hours to train and become intelligent. So we use some machine learning. We're trying to use it to minimize a recruiter's efforts on the things that they don't like doing and that they won't do. So some of that kind of middle engagement piece in terms of trying to help keep some of those candidates who have come in, had a look at your organization, have considered you, trying to think about the content that's been generated on the corporate side, trying to think about information that candidate would like to know about, and algorithmically get it in front of those candidates and get content rather than jobs in front of them. So that's one area we're...
So that's more nurturing, right? So you're going through the nurturing process.
Sure, yeah. I think then as you move further down the funnel and you're into the world of, okay, our ATS is pretty empty. Our recruitment marketing platform is pretty empty as well. So how do we fill it? Well, I think AI and the sourcing type technologies that live there are going to be a perfect complement to that. So there'll be a quick way to fill your funnel that an algorithm will be able to say, well, listen, we don't have enough people. Advertising is not bringing in the people we need for this particular role. So we are going to have to go out to a third party, ingest some candidates, challenging with GDPR, to be honest. Certainly in this part of the world, maybe less so in the United States. And potentially start to warm up some of those candidates, get them a little bit further down the funnel, maybe at least to try and, via content, expose them to the jobs and the opportunities so that they're ready to be engaged by a source or a recruiter further down the road. And really to try and do that on an ongoing basis rather than on demand, just because a new rec has gone live today and has to be filled next week.
Yeah. Same question, because we're talking about recruiters not being marketers. How does AI actually help in that process? How does it impact? Maybe negatively.
Well, actually, no. I think it's very positive.
Okay.
So basically, what we are doing with our technology is, based on all the, based on the data we have of all the performance of the different websites we have in our portfolio, we can actually use this data and we can use AI to predict how many candidates a recruiter might get if they use different type of media to post their jobs. Right now we can predict already how much candidate they approximately get, but in the future, in the near future, already this year, we're going to also have a performance-based model on that. So we really use AI to not only predict the outcome of the campaign, but also we will have a business model around that. In that sense, AI will help the recruiter to be more successful.
So Shane set up a great question for you. How does GDPR actually help or hinder marketing? Is marketing going to pretty much go away because GDPR is too restrictive?
Oh my God, GDPR.
Nobody's talking about this, right? We haven't seen this.
We have it under control. To be honest, it doesn't really impact us too much with marketing, to be quite honest.
Because you're talking about current employees. and elements.
Sure.
Okay.
So it's just very much from us, it's the storage of the data, but I mean, apart from that, we're okay.
So you're fine.
We're good.
Everything's fine. What about you guys? I mean, that's more external. Shane?
Yeah, well, I think to a degree we sit in that marketing layer. So similar to HubSpot or Marketo, we sit between the potential channels like the advertisers or the organic search, and we capture candidates. So we can apply that consent mechanism in that part of the process. It does make it challenging. I know there is certainly some camps believe that even cookies and stuff can be considered personal data. I think that's, I guess, still speculative at this stage because most of this stuff is yet to be tested. There's no precedent for a lot of it. And so the law has been written, but the actual practice of the law and how it gets applied to companies hasn't actually been practiced yet. So it's hard to understand what's going to happen there. But yeah, for sure, it's definitely going to make it a little bit more orientated towards the candidate and giving them control of their data. And even potentially, we all talk about aggregating candidate data. Making that data available to the candidate for their benefit is going to be very much a part of it. You're going to have to allow your candidate to say these behaviors that you have carried out on our platform or site or whatever, they are yours and you can use them to your advantage to get a job elsewhere potentially.
So that being said, what about being able to reach out to them via Facebook Messenger and text? Just beyond email.
Yeah, there is. Well, the method actually doesn't really matter. So whether it's an SMS or whether it's an email, it doesn't really matter how you do it. There is a mechanism whereby you are allowed to do it if it's in your business interests, which is ostensibly trying to hire people. I think again, there's no precedent here, but I think what it does require you to do is, if you are not able to potentially place that person, you can't just hang on to their data forever. You've got to get rid of it after a period of time, or you've got to get their consent to actually hang on to it and potentially reuse it. So I think it presents challenges. It's not insurmountable. I think software will allow it, but it certainly will require some modifications to potentially going and just sourcing code candidates, hoovering them up, sticking them in a database for a rainy day. That's probably not going to happen anymore in Europe.
So let's say back to the internal side of the house. Being able to engage external, internal really doesn't matter. We want to do it on pretty much the ground they want to do business, right? And that communication happens either text, email, Facebook Messenger. Is that something that you're seeing at Talabest? And are you guys really trying to embrace that, whether it's WhatsApp or whatever it might be, to be able to ensure that you're communicating with that individual the way that they want to be communicated with?
I think it's a really good question because the workforce, as we know it, has completely changed. Our trends have changed, our motivations changed, but most importantly, the way we communicate has massively changed. So what we find is that a lot of organizations are really trying to play catch up because they're finding that the engagement is low. They don't know, is an email the best way to communicate? They don't even have analytics on what's been open versus what's not. So we're very passionate about the end user because at the end of the day, if your employee or our ex-employee isn't engaged, it's kind of a waste of your time. So what we do, again, as I mentioned earlier, everything is tagged to the interest of the user. So one of the big disadvantages of being joined, say, to a LinkedIn group, and I'm sure many people in here can relate, is that once you join a group, you'll get these multiple emails about group discussions that may have absolutely no relevance to you as a user. So what we do is that we don't believe in sending emails, sending spams, unless it's absolutely relevant. So that's the first thing that we do. We make it as relevant as we possibly can to the user. The second thing we do is that we have an internal messaging system. So again, we make it very simple for people to communicate instead of having a big email chain going on. The third thing is that mobile applications is what a normal user is used to. So that's something that we're investing in 2018, is that how do we make sure that we can get a user, when they have their phone, when they're outside of the office, because that's another big trend that organizations are going to see in the next couple of years, is people, working more part-time, not working in the office. So communication needs to be one of their main priorities.
And doing it in all these different platforms? So, not just a single platform?
We have a single platform.
Does it integrate with these other Facebook messengers?
It's not very relevant for us to be integrated with Facebook. Where we do, we're starting to do a little bit of work is Facebook at work and seeing how we can align together. But again, a lot of organizations still ban Facebook, in their workplace. So for us, it's just trying to be very simple. And
how do they ban Facebook in their workplace? How does anybody know how we ban Facebook in our workplace? You can't, can you? I mean, are they going to block your phone? Because Facebook is a pretty much a mobile app, right? Not as much as Twitter is. So how are they going to? I don't understand.
See, mostly some of the larger banks, just on the servers, that you can't access it, but on your phone.
That's on your
desktop.
On your desktop, yeah. So we're really fooling ourselves to think that we're going to ban a communication mechanism like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of organizations just see it as a massive distraction. And, Facebook at work would be coming in kind of saying that, look, it's an easier way to communicate, it's not quite Facebook. But again, Facebook at work is going successfully because they've replicated it off Facebook, which people are used to. It's going back to that whole user behavior and user experience.
But aren't we just fooling ourselves, Tycho? Seriously, we're just fooling ourselves saying that, Facebook is a distraction. We're going to take Facebook away. Because you're not taking Facebook away.
Why would you?
It's a distraction, I guess. But I mean, if that's the mechanism in which I want to be able to, because I don't know how many people today will not pick up a phone. They will not answer an actual call. Texting is huge. Take a look at the impact that texting has, the open rate. So why do we think that we can just ban these types of mechanisms when we can't?
But if you look at the last years, I mean, companies are looking much more in a flexible way to their staff, right? I mean, they're very flexible in where they work, how they work, etc. So if I look at my company, I mean, everyone can use their social media. The only thing we care about is their output. We don't even care when they're on the office, for example.
Shane, you guys have a nice book of business. The companies that you work with, I mean, do you see, what are you actually seeing when it comes down to messaging and just from an outreach standpoint? Does it matter to them in most cases? Or are they trying to actually mold themselves into, hey, look, I want to make sure that our message gets to the final destination, the employees, the candidate, in the way that they want to receive it?
I think it is a challenge, and certainly some of the bigger brands that we work with are very conscious, driven by the marketing side of the house, that the brand is presented the right way, which does necessitate some degree of control over these things. So be it, managing how your jobs appear on a job board, how your logos appear, in emails, and again, of course, that extends out to Facebook. I will have to say though, I'd say half of those brands that are our client book those started as Facebook relationships. Those deals were closed through Facebook. So there is value in Facebook, depending on what you're doing in the organization. For sure, it can be massively distracting, but as a modern means of communication, and specifically Messenger, it is a great way to build, sales relationships. And provided you're careful and cognizant of people's time, it's a quick way to get responses.
So that being said, do we see, with the targeting and all the analytics and things of that nature, predictive, do we see the days of blanket emails going out to hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of people going away and being more targeted in email, text, Facebook Messenger, those types of mechanisms?
For sure, and I see Adam over there from Candle ID, and what they do, they look at what different social channels people are engaging on, because, and again, we do it in Clinch, that's where people want to be reached because it's in context. So if the target candidate has just happened to post something on Facebook, well then that's possibly the time you should be messaging them on Facebook. Likewise, if they're back on your career side looking at jobs again, now's the time for the recruiters to be picking up the phone. I think a lot of the misses in recruitment, and in some cases the fact that recruiters get a bad name, is really around two things. It's about timing and context. So much of the bulk outreach is done with zero context for what the other person is doing, and it's done timed to an email that says, you know what, it's good to send emails because they get opened at 12 o'clock on a Tuesday. Well, that might be the case for a few people, but for a lot of people, that's not the time they want to engage with you. So I think that's the important thing, is having a better awareness of your target audience, the channels that they're interacting with, and then contextually and in a timely manner message them across those channels, rather than just, as you described, the kind of world of let's send 100,000 emails or SMSs at lunchtime and hope for the best.
Gotcha. So that's one of the reasons why TalentVest has your own kind of messaging system, because you're, from what I heard, you're more pointed, more focused in that, I mean, for those specific types of individuals, so you're not spamming them.
You know, we would, and to be honest, for me, where I think my opinion would be, we're still very much at the early learning of how to reach the perfect candidate in the perfect form of communication. Because on one hand, yes, it's a lot easier to contact somebody via Facebook or on Instagram, but at the same time, you know, a lot of people would be on Facebook or Instagram for a private reason. You know, they want to just communicate with friends and family, and the minute you start introducing recruiters or any other industry to private message somebody, does that change the whole mission? Does that change kind of why a user would go onto Facebook? So I still think we're very at the early learnings of that. Why we decided to keep it internal is because, again, we didn't want the user or the customer going to 2 or 3 different platforms. We wanted everything to be on the one platform, and as a result, users stay on a lot longer. There's more meaningful information. Again, because everything's targeted towards every individual user, there's something meaningful that they get out of it. So for me, it's trying to keep everything simple and on the one platform and as engaged as possible.
Gotcha.
And again, I think AI plays a very important role here. I mean, you know, why should you use a recruiter to determine when to approach a candidate? I mean, you should use the technology to do that, to do so.
Well, that being said, throw out another one. What about chatbots? Right? Chatbots can be seen as a pretty good form of marketing. Somebody's trying to engage you. And what about chatbots?
Yeah, it's not really our cup of tea, because as soon as we deliver the candidates on the website of the client, you know, we only track whether this candidate was successful, whether this candidate was hired in the end. So we are not really in the space of chatbots, but I really see this as a very interesting way of also automating a big part of the role of the recruiter.
Say a little bit about it. I think it's quenchtalent.com now, isn't it?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I think chatbots are very interesting. I think that as a means of engaging candidates, they are currently doing really well. I wonder, is there a little bit of novelty factor there? You know, the little message box pops up in the bottom corner. Yeah, so you say, hey, I'm going to have a chat with this. I think they are a great, they're not difficult to implement. The technology is available relatively off the shelf. I think the hard work comes in when you want the chatbot to start to perform more complicated processes. So,
like what?
Like screening candidates for certain skills, attributes, and things like that. I think they're a great way of delivering an alternative job search in a messaging channel that is. If you've ever watched anybody on the tube in London or on the metro in New York, you'll see most people have phones out, and in some cases they are looking for jobs. And I think that audience would much prefer, and they're faster at it, they enjoy engaging in a messenger type environment because it's a quick way to get the discovery done. So I think messenger bots are really exciting as another way to deliver employer branding and job discovery. I think then where the real hard work, and that's not difficult to do, the hard work with bots starts when you want the bot to become intelligent and decide that Tycho is going to be much better at this job than Shane is for whatever reason along the way. And again, back to GDPR, that becomes tricky because now you've got to tell the candidate up front how that decision is being reached. And I don't think a lot of us are set up for that yet.
Yeah. Well, so from a process standpoint, how do we, because this is marketing, right? Because we are touching candidates. So this is marketing. How do we do that effectively with a chatbot?
We don't use use chatbots, so to be honest, for me, this is probably for my own user experience of chatting with chatbots. I think the most important thing is that when you use the chatbots is that you get actual valuable information back. I think one of the most important thing about anybody these days is that you're very impatient. So if you don't get something instantly, you're just going to shut off straight away. So I think if anybody's going to incorporate chatbots, and it's something that we've looked into, it has to be instant, it has to be valuable, and if the user doesn't get that, they're not going to be engaged.
So most of the chatbots that I've engaged with, they will ask you for your email address, just in case they can't get back to you fast enough so that they can try to keep you engaged. Do you think that's something that's fairly viable? Do you think candidates will provide information that way to be able to know that there's a carrot at the end of that?
Sure. I mean, I think at the end of the day, everybody wants to know that they've been looked after and that, yes, it's the chatbots, but they kind of like to believe that maybe somebody is actually at the bottom of it saying, God, we really care about this person. And I think one thing that was really interesting that was brought up is that, people are looking at jobs every second. As I said, the new lifespan of an employee is 18 months, which is relatively small in comparison to 10 years. So again, it has to be instant, it has to be very easy, it has to be good user experience, and actually having a chatbot to do that would solve a lot of the problems of somebody going through a long application process. So I think in terms of recruitment going forward, I think that needs to be, very much the main target for the recruiters. How do you make it as efficient as a chatbot may be the best solution for it?
What about for the recruiters though? Because they need information too, and chatbots provide information to candidates, but could they do that internally to be able to help with the whole recruiting, marketing kind of journey?
When we were talking about chatbots, I was thinking about a funny article I saw last week or the week before. A company was called Lemonade. It's a company in the US. Where it's fully automated, where you as a consumer are able to have an insurance fully automated. So you can just use that app to have, and they ask you all kind of questions, and there's no one in between, and you can close an insurance for your house fully automated. And if I read those articles, and then if you take recruitment, then on the other side, then you can see that a chatbot can solve so much problems there, and so much save a lot of money for companies. So I think recruitment is always 1 or 2 years behind those kind of innovations. But if those innovations will tap into the recruitment space, I think a lot of the work of the recruitment will be automated there.
So, Shane, you were talking about some of your clients and actual marketing getting involved. How often does that happen? Because from my experience, marketing, even though there are hundreds of thousands possibly of profiles or prospective customers and whatnot, they just don't engage with recruiting.
No, and it's a shame on two fronts, because most talent acquisition teams don't have vast marketing resources, or even sometimes rarely they have digital marketing skills in the team. So I think there's a lot that can be gained by involving the marketing team in recruitment. I think marketing also doesn't have the same perspective on recruitment that recruiters do, so they live on a different side of the house. And again, there's a gulf of opportunity there. So we work with a number of retailers, and some of them are doing a very simple post-apply candidate engagement email that asks the candidate, it thanks them for their time, and it asks them to fill in a net promoter feedback score. These guys get a score, it's in excess of 70-75%, which is huge. But more importantly, they're building a list of the promoters who, and it's thousands and thousands, tens of thousands at this stage, who have all actually said, I would recommend this brand to my friends and family. And that actually recommendation for sure spills out past recruitment and jobs, because they have a good feeling about the brand. So there's a huge opportunity for larger brands who are, I think particularly in retail, where they're consumer facing, to use some of that pool, and it's not as cheesy as, hey, you didn't get the job, here's a voucher. There are a lot more tasteful ways of helping people, engaging with them, and getting them over to the marketing side of the house, bluntly, to get more resources on your side of the house to prove your value.
I think there was a very interesting business case made by Virgin Media in the UK last year, where they had a very bad candidate experience on their website, and then it turned out that a lot of those people who were rejected from a job, they stopped with their subscription on Virgin Media in the 3 months after. So the business case did, and it turned out it cost them more than 5 million each year, or 6 million.
So
I mean,
and that's a great point. So if we understand that, and again, Virgin Media research is out there. You can Google it. It's pretty awesome. They had a horrible candidate experience. Candidates went into what? The black hole. And not just the ones that didn't get the job, the ones who didn't get any type of engagement whatsoever. So how important is it for us to engage everyone? Whether they weren't even close to hitting the mark or not, how important is it, especially if we understand that candidates are customers, period. So Virgin Media actually, they showed the results where they lost $6 million in revenue. How would you, put yourself in the shoes of CHRO, and the CEO comes to you and says, oh look, you just lost $6 million. How would you like to be in that position, right? Because it does impact your bottom line. Marketing does impact your bottom line on the candidate side as well. They furthered the review and noticed that they could also prospectively, hopefully save that $6 million with a great candidate experience, but they could prospectively earn an additional $7 million on top of that because of the candidates who were not using Virgin Media products. So the big question is, when is big marketing going to take over employment marketing?
I actually love that Virgin Media case study because we did a little bit of work with them at the very beginning when they were figuring this out. What they also did, apart from that, was for all the candidates that didn't get hired, they put them into a recruitment pool. So they might have been appropriate for that particular job at that time, but maybe, again, 18 months later, they could reach back out to the candidate and offer them a different job. So I mean, it's great, it makes so much sense. I think marketing is so much opportunity when it comes to recruitment. And one of the things that we do with some of our early customers, and actually any customer now going forward, is that we really tell them, go and market the success of your alumni. Go tell the world that yes, we have left, but let me tell you about what she did in the 18 months. She achieved A, B, and C, but then we got her back. And you're reading more and more articles about these boomerangs about what people are doing, and people love to read that. They like to follow where the success is. And I think the one thing every company needs to acknowledge and accept is that churn is going to happen, and it's going to happen whether you have the best perks in the world, and you just need to accept it, but see it as an opportunity. So if you do get churn, get your marketing department actually involved and say, well, how can we market this? How can we, in some reason, use this as an attractive tool to actually go and gain new employees off of the success of the people that are leaving, and invest in figuring out where people are going. But again, most importantly, understand why people are leaving.
Who's seen that survey? Look for it, use it. I mean, it is, if we can do anything, we can help talent acquisition and marketing understand how they are positively and negatively impacting the bottom line. Because what does the CEO and COO care most about? People, the dollar, right? The dollar. So the movement away from really employer brand to just brand. Shane, you see that happening? Yes, no?
I think they're so inextricably linked as it is. I think employer branders would like to think that they can create an employer brand. They don't. They have a brand. That's it. It is what it is. And there's a definitive overlap between the corporate brand and the employer brand. And we see this with some of our, let's say, more challenging clients that are working in some of, let's say, industries that are not necessarily that well loved. And the employer brand and the corporate brand are absolutely connected, and the two have to live hand in hand.
Yeah. I agree. So real quick, let me cut you off. Any questions? We can go on all day sitting here, droning on. Questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, what we've been seeing for years already, that there's a Chinese wall between marketing and recruitment marketing, and in some cases you see that recruitment marketing, they want to team up with the marketing team, but in the end it turns out that there's no priority with the marketing team, so they're very low on their interest. So in most of the cases what we see
why is that low though?
Well, they focus on the dollars.
Well, that's what I mean. So it's low because they don't understand the actual dollars that are being impacted every day,
exactly.
And how many prospective customers are being touched. I mean, how many actual candidates / customers are hitting your website every single day on the career site, going through that process, whatever that process is. Think of that. Those are dollars, right?
Okay. I totally agree on that. But that's what I see happening still within those companies. So.
Excellent. Well, we're getting thrown off the stage.
Thank you very much.
Shane.
Another episode of RecTech is in the books. Follow Chris on Twitter at Chris Russell or visit rectechmedia.com, where you can find the audio and links for this show on our blog. RecTech Media helps both HR tech firms and employers to get more clients or candidates through our consulting practice and online tools. So be sure to check out our sites like recruiting headlines, job fairing, and more to stay up to date on what's happening in recruiting. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon on the next episode of RecTech, the Recruiting Technology Podcast.